Hello, Marie Burns here. I'd like to talk with you about personal finance in our lives. Have you ever tried a tongue twister? I'm sure, but have you done one in a while? Try this one, financial freebie frenzy. Try to say financial freebie frenzy 3 times fast. I'm referring to all of the great attention on the topic of financial literacy, and it's getting it more and more every April, every year, because back in 2004, it was recognized in the United States as Financial Literacy Month. It passed a Senate resolution back then in 2004 in an effort to help raise public awareness about the importance of financial education, as well as the serious consequences associated with a lack of understanding about our personal finances. The president at the time issued a proclamation, and he called on the federal government, states, cities, schools, nonprofit organizations, businesses, other entities, and the people of the United States to observe the month of April with appropriate programs and activities. So we have this good feeding frenzy that we see today online with free personal finance, online education, local workshops, educational materials, and lots more media attention. That's all good. Yet despite this time, this money, this effort, people are not financially healthier. Only 34% of people in the United States are considered financially healthy, according to a 2021 Financial Health Network Pulse report, as recently shared in an article by Tony Stewart, who is a head financial wellness advocate. You can check out his link and his article below, because what I like to spend a few minutes on is sharing with you his 3 key points in his recent article about what actually needs to change in the way we think about money to make all of this financial literacy work. And as women in what I call the thrive time of our life, I find it immensely important to be aware of these 3 challenges of financial awareness that Tony outlined. So hopefully awareness is going to allow you to reflect, to decide how you can or are role modeling, and then to intentionally take some action to make a difference wherever we can. So the first main conclusion that Tony shares is that all the financial literacy education, knowledge, and resources by themselves will not motivate change. Until we each understand our why, there will be no behavior change. Why are we or are we not taking more positive actions with our money? That answer lies in financial wellness, a much broader focus on the topic, where we also begin to understand our personal money history, which has influenced our values and our goals, not just the technical aspect of personal finance. So I encourage you to think back to your childhood and identify, how did you feel about money as a child? Was there tension in the home around finances? Was money even discussed? Did you feel like your family was well off or not so well off? Or maybe you were oblivious? And what memory do you still have about a money-related story from childhood? We all have one, at least one. When I was discussing this topic with one of my podcast guests, there's a link below to episode 5 to hear her tell this story, but she could still vividly describe an incident from when she was 8 years old. She tells about how she was in a room down the hallway in their home, down the hallway from her parents, and she could hear their voices escalating. They were getting louder and louder as her father was apparently teaching her mother about balancing the checkbook. Suddenly, she heard a very loud thud. She peeked out of her doorway down the hall to where her mother was sitting at the dining room table with her father standing behind her. He had slammed her mother's head into the table, breaking her nose, and blood was running down her face. At that moment, at that little age of 8, she vowed to never rely on a man for money. Hopefully the money story that you recollect from childhood was not that negative or graphic, but we all have a story or two in our memory banks, even if it is just recognition that we were oblivious and never thought about money as a kid. Either way, that childhood experience has influenced you to this day. More recent time in your life, being in a relationship, has also impacted your personal money history, your goals, and your values. Your financial role in that relationship or those relationships likely still influences you today. Whichever category, and there's a link to the blog that I explained the 3 different categories you can fall into with financial relationships, it helps to be aware that the research has also found the 3rd category, the divide and conquer couple, fares the best when one of them is left alone as a survivor after death or even after divorce. Tony's second crucial point in this article is that thinking in terms of financial wellness versus financial literacy can also help us to practice being judgment-free. A focus on financial wellness can help us recognize that we all have had and are having a different financial journey for various reasons, and that's okay. If we feel judged, we often disengage. So this means we don't take any healthy actions to improve our situation. I volunteered recently as a judge for both an economic challenge event with middle and high school students and an essay writing activity for some 4th to 5th graders. And aside from being impressed with some of their knowledge, I also saw the benefits of hands-on learning. But in delivering the results to the students, instead of focusing on the scores, I really found the value coming in the emphasis on what was learned and how to see money for what it is. Just another tool in life, no judgment. The last main takeaway from Tony's article is the importance of putting knowledge into action. A focus on financial wellness helps us understand how and why and when to put financial education into action. And so he ends by challenging us to change the way we think and therefore act about money. I was reminded again recently how, it takes 7 to 13 exposures to information before we take action. So one action I encourage you to take now that you have read this blog is to sign yourself up for some kind of what they call drip education in some area of personal finance. So maybe it's a free newsletter. There's a link to mine below, for example, or an email campaign or an online course that sends you automated reminders. They call that dripping on you with these ongoing nudges that over time are encouraging you to take action on some area of personal finance. Got to get in those 7 to 13 reminders, right? That way you are more likely to be nudged into action and you can become part of this financial freebie frenzy in a constructive way.